and welcome. Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're happy that you're here. My name is Tamara Bingham. I'm the Director of Business Development here at Center for Change. I'm here with Dr. Nicole Hawkins, who I'll introduce here shortly. People are just, the Zoom webinar is letting folks in, so I'll just breathe and talk slow for a second to let everybody kind of get online. We're so happy that you all could join us. I will let you know that we have a delightful mix of folks who are looking for some information and support. I know we also have some folks joining us who are clinicians who maybe have clients that this might be helpful for, etc. So we're thrilled to have you all on. I want to let you know that cameras and mics are off on purpose. We want to make sure everybody feels super comfortable, regardless of their role and why they're attending. So cameras are off for everyone, and mics are muted for everyone. Also, the chat is disabled. We just have lots of folks, and it tends to get a little crazy when you have a lot of folks with the chat. However, we do have the Q&A open, so we're so happy to get comments in the Q&A if you'd like. In that tab, you can also ask questions throughout Dr. Hawkins' presentation. If there's something that it seems needs to be addressed right away, or it's a topic that Nicole is talking about, and before she moves on to the next one, I'm going to hop back on. I'll turn on my camera and my mic. I might ask a question or two in the moment, and then we'll let Nicole finish. I'll save the majority of them. However, for the end of the presentation, Nicole will save some time at the end for questions, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. If by chance you have a burning question that we don't get to, you're more than welcome to send an email to cfcwebinar@gmail.com. That's the same email address that you have on all of your confirmation emails that you got about the webinar. So feel free to reach out via that email address. Let me know your question there, and then I can pass it on to Dr. Hawkins and we can get back to you. So just know that that's an option as well. Okay, we're going to get going. I'm going to introduce my boss, Dr. Nicole Hawkins. She's also my friend. We worked together for a long time. Nicole has been here 27,
Yeah,
20,
27 years.
I've been here 18, so we've known each other a long time. If you're not familiar with Dr. Hawkins, Nicole is a clinical psychologist. She's the chief executive officer here at Center for Change. She also is a specialist in eating disorders and body image. She runs body image groups still in our program every week. So every patient in the building knows Nicole, and that's unusual, I think, for folks who run an eating disorder program to still be involved in clinical care and know every patient in the building. So for those of you who know Dr. Hawkins, you know that everybody is in for a treat. And for those of you who aren't familiar with her presentation, I'm excited for you because you're going to be really happy that you joined us today. So Nicole, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I will keep an eye on questions. As I said, I'll pop back on if there's something burning that we need to address right away. Obviously, if you have a tech issue, holler at me and I'll pop back on as well. Otherwise, I'll see you at the end of the presentation.
Perfect. Thanks, Tamara. Yeah, every once in a while my mic goes out, as you know, being on Zoom calls with me. So if that happens, just let me know. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon, depending on where you are and the time it is for you. One other thing to know about me, for those of you that don't know me, I'm recovered myself, been recovered, I think, going on 35 years. I had anorexia, I had bulimia, and had binge eating disorder. So even for someone like me, 35 years recovered, the holidays can still be a stressful time for me. And so I think this presentation is pretty relevant for a lot of us going into the holiday season. So we're going to talk about general research just this time of year, why it can be so stressful for so many individuals. Then we'll talk about eating disorder triggers during the holidays, because I think it's important to know our triggers. Because if we can know what kind of triggers us or what triggers other people, that can help us kind of plan for our triggers. Of course, we can't plan for everything, but the more things we can plan for, we can be prepared. And then we'll talk about some evidence-based coping skills. I'm going to go over some case vignettes, give you some kind of samples of different coping skills you can use. And then for family and loved ones, I know there's some family and loved ones that have joined the webinar, talk about ways you can help support family members. And then we'll do kind of a building a recovery like holiday toolkit to kind of help you get through the holidays. So it really doesn't matter like kind of your background, whether you celebrate, Christmas, Hanukkah, winter solstice, whatever it is, your faith, your culture. I think for all of us, we get together in groups. There's a lot of family interactions, there's a lot of expectations, there's a lot of norms around food. So it can be a lot of stress. And so I think the bottom line is we have to have a lot of compassion for ourselves. So this can be a wonderful time of year, but it can also be a stressful time of year. And so that's what we're going to talk about. So no matter where you are in your recovery, I have some things geared if you're just in the beginning stages of your recovery, if you're still in your eating disorder versus if you've been in your kind of a longer period of your recovery. So let's look at the general research. So for 89% of the population, they say the holidays are just stressful. I know for me, holidays are just stressful. I'm already kind of feeling stressed out about Thanksgiving. 41% of people say this is the most stressful time of year for them. And some of the key reasons are the financial stress, kind of the increased stress around family or social obligations, and then just kind of changes in our normal routine. And then, of course, Thanksgiving conflict. So last year, 17% of Americans said they had a significant family conflict over political arguments. 31% of the population under the age of 30 feel that's going to happen again this year. So my advice to you is don't talk about politics. That's kind of in our family, we already know that's just a topic we avoid, but I think for a lot of families that's stressful, especially around the table. Another 35% of Americans feel very lonely this time of year. And when you think about a lot of the events, there's always a plus one. What if you don't have a plus one? That can be a really hard time. The gift giving, like going to events alone, it's really hard. And then other people are worried about other people being lonely this time of year. So loneliness is a hard thing during the holidays. And then of course, shopping and expenses. 2 out of 5 shoppers now expect to scale back. 30% of Americans say they are still paying off the expenses from last Christmas. And then the recent Gallup survey said that the average American says they'll spend about $1,000 this year for holidays. If you're not familiar with 988, I really encourage you, if you're ever struggling, this is a wonderful resource. So when it first came out, December 2021 compared to December 2022, calls increased 48%, chats increased 263%, and texts almost 1,500%. So a lot of my clients have used this resource, especially the chats or the text component of it. And they tell me they use it late at night, especially if their family members, their support people are asleep. They find that this texting component of this resource is very, very helpful, especially when they're feeling lonely, they're feeling down. I guess the one positive thing about December and November are we do see lower suicide rates during this time. So even though for a lot of us it is a very stressful time of year, the good news is suicide rates are lower and there are resources. So again, write this number down if you're not familiar with it because it is a wonderful resource. When we look at health research, cardiac events, like for example, heart attacks, 37% increase in heart attacks on Christmas Eve alone. A lot of this is attributed to stress, alcohol, diet, and delay in care. So around the holidays, a lot of people, if they're feeling symptoms, will not go in and seek care. They put it off. They say, well, it's Christmas Eve or it's Christmas Day. I'm not going to go to the ER. I'm not going to go to the hospital. So that's why they think there's a spike in these events. And then, of course, alcohol-related harms. And we're going to talk about some alcohol issues later in the presentation. But we see increase ER visits related to alcohol on Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve. And then I think there's a big myth too about weight changes during the holiday. I think everyone thinks a lot of people gain weight during the holidays. And I've heard people say up to 5 to 10 pounds. The research says it's really not even a pound. It's zero point 0.8. So this reminds me of the freshman 15. Some of you that know me know my eating disorder started in college, because when I went to this college in Northern California, the administration sat us down and they said, don't gain the freshman 15. You don't want to get the Benson butt. That was the name of our cafeteria. Well, I was such a people pleaser. I was so harm avoidant. I thought, well, I'm not going to gain the freshman 15, so I'll lose 15 pounds so that I guess when I gain it, I'll be even. Well, if any of you saw the Time magazine article that came out this summer, the freshman 15 is not a thing. And I already posted a meta-analysis about this on my Instagram a couple years ago. If we want to call it anything, it's the freshman 2 to 3 pounds. But I didn't know that as a freshman in college. I trusted my administration. So again, holiday weight gain is actually not a thing. Uh, but I think a lot of us go into the holidays thinking it is. And so having a lot of anxiety around that. But yeah, if you have not seen that Time magazine article, please see it. And why do freshmen gain weight in college? Because our bodies are still growing and developing and changing. That is, our senior year high school body is not our adult woman body. It's still growing. So of course, body image issues during the holidays. There's definitely a hyper focus on body image during the holidays. We get maybe a lot of comments on our bodies. There has been a study looking at social media posts during the holidays, Thomas and all. They looked at 12 million social media posts, and they definitely saw the biggest spike in body image dissatisfaction in terms of posts just around Christmas. So we definitely know that probably the worst time of year to be on social media in terms of body image is around Christmas. You are almost guaranteeing you're going to be triggered by the content that's going to be on. And I think it's probably from Christmas into the new year, and we're going to talk about into, the January and the New Year's resolutions as well, but around all that weight loss and that pressure. So people most at risk during the holidays, individuals grieving a recent loss. Some of you that know me know I lost a baby in the beginning of December many, many years ago. I can talk about it now without crying. But for me, every time going into the month of December now is a very, very hard time of the year for me. So if you've had a loss or a grief, and it doesn't even have to be in the month of December, but approaching the holiday season, if you're missing that loved one, going into the holidays is a very hard time of the year for you. Those with mood disorders or seasonal affective disorder, again, going into the winter months, very hard time. People in recovery from substance abuse, many holiday gatherings, we have alcohol everywhere. And then individuals with eating disorders, hence why we're doing this webinar, because we are at high risk this time of year. So you can kind of look at this list and look at how many of these you kind of can check the box for and look at your vulnerability this time of the year. So let's look at some top triggers. And as I go through some of these areas, if you know some of these are your triggers, write them down. And then, because the plan is if I know these are my triggers, then your homework assignment's going to be, for every trigger, I need to have a plan of how am I going to either try to avoid the trigger, if possible, because some of these triggers I can't avoid, some I cannot avoid. So how can I avoid the trigger? But if I cannot avoid the trigger, how am I going to cope with the trigger? And I need to try to find 3 ways to cope with the trigger. So that's going to be like our protective factor. Can I avoid the trigger? If I can't avoid it, how do I cope with it? So I'm going to go into each situation having hopefully a plan in place of how to deal with it beforehand. So let's first look at emotional and environmental triggers. So first, kind of talked about it, lots of food, family, and social gatherings all the time. So first, you could have a lot of unfamiliar environments or crowded settings. So if you already know you're going to be traveling, you already know you're going into relatives' homes, if you already know this, you have to start planning for it now. So start thinking, I'm going to have to go to my aunt's house this year. We are traveling, to my uncle's house this year. If you already know you're going to unfamiliar environments, you need to start planning for it now. Family tensions or unresolved issues. I think we all probably have these. What is your plan for this? Are there any things you maybe need to address before you go into that environment? Or is the plan maybe we already know ahead of time? We're just not going to talk about that. So with my husband's family, we already know ahead of time, we do not talk about politics. It's already like a spoken rule. It's not even an unspoken rule. It is a spoken rule that we don't talk about that because there's probably a lot of unresolved issues that we'll never resolve. And then do your family members maybe minimize the impact of your eating disorder or maybe the impact your eating disorder still has? Especially if you've been in treatment, I think a lot of times they expect that you now should be fine or you should be better. And so they're maybe wondering, why are you still struggling? And so, how do you approach that with them, especially if they are expecting you to be fine? And then memories of past holidays. If this has been a difficult time for you, expecting that you could be flooded with some of these past memories. And for a lot of my clients, the holidays bring up trauma anniversaries because a lot of their trauma has happened around the holidays, especially if they have trauma involving family members, cousins, extended family members. The trauma has happened around the holidays when the family has gotten together. So knowing that ahead of time, having a plan for that, maybe having extra therapy sessions before that, knowing how am I going to go into this season being prepared and kind of like gearing up to know this is going to be a really hard time for me. So food related kind of triggers and stress, being surrounded by large meals, there's usually a lot of desserts, constant food talk, buffets, potlucks, a lot of unfamiliar food that you're usually not around, a lot of grazing, long gaps between meals. You could be around a lot of maybe fear foods that you're usually not around. And you could find that your urges are really, really high. Maybe urges you haven't had in a long time. So urges to restrict, to binge, to purge. And you might have limited ability to even have control over your food because you could be in other people's environment. So that could be, you could feel really out of control. You could have a lot of fear of judgment of what or how much you're eating. And you could feel a lot of pressure to eat what's offered, especially when you're in someone else's home and you're being offered food. It can feel really awkward to say no, or I'm not eating that. And so feeling that pressure as well. And then, of course, we know there's so many diet focused conversations. If you already know you're going to be around a lot of people, and we're going to get to more of those conversations here in a minute, that are going to be talking about their diets, their weight loss. What are you going to do when those conversations come up? And in the vignettes, we'll be talking about those. And then the expectations that you should maybe just be eating normally, that you should be past this, that you should be okay by now. So, of course, changes in our routine. So, I always, stress one of the most important things in recovery, I think, is kind of having a regular meal plan. I always say that even if you're an intuitive eater, I want you to have a meal plan and you can be an intuitive about what you're eating, but I want you to have kind of a meal plan where you kind of know, around when you're eating breakfast, around when you're eating lunch, around when you're eating dinner. Of course, during the holidays, that can all change. So having a plan for that. And then if you're traveling, your schedule can change. With parties, it can change. Our sleep can change. We can get very fatigued. Then that will dysregulate our emotions. So you could really feel like you're on edge a lot. You could also feel like you have reduced access to maybe your comfort food or your routine food. And then also a lack of privacy may make it really difficult for you to use your coping strategies. So if you usually have a routine of how you wind down in the evening, but your evenings are full with events or you're staying at someone else's house, that makes it really hard for you to have your kind of standard coping mechanisms that you usually use. So body image pressures, seeing relatives that you haven't seen for a long time or seeing friends that you haven't seen for a long time. I know a lot of my clients that are college age get very or feel very triggered because they know a lot of people will be coming in from out of state, coming home from college, and feeling that pressure of seeing people they haven't seen for a while and getting comments about their body. And also, again, social media. There's a lot of like pressure to look a certain way, what we call holiday bodies, and these kind of festive images that can really fuel comparison. And then a lot of events where we maybe have to wear formal wear, and that can make you feel very self-conscious. And then photos, family photos that are maybe taken every year around the holidays. So if you already know these things are coming up, what are your thoughts for this? How are you preparing for this? So these are all things that I want you to start thinking about. If these are things I know are approaching, I've got to start having a plan now. Because if I go into all these events without a plan, the eating disorder will usually win. So I have to start thinking, how am I going to react? How do I want to react? What am I going to do, especially if I have to have family photos? How am I going to get through that? And then stress and expectations, again, the pressure to buy gifts, the financial strain, we already kind of talked about that. For a lot of people, that overcommitment to go to social events, you can feel very burnt out. I don't know about a lot of you, but I'm a huge introvert. Sometimes people don't believe that about me, but I'm an introvert. So this time of year can be exhausting for me. And so, kind of maybe putting a limit on how many events you're going to go to, and then putting a limit on how long you'll be at the event. And that's completely okay. And then also for some of you, you may feel the pressure to keep the peace in your family. That maybe you are the people pleaser and people look to you to be the one that's going to kind of hold the family together at these events. And so just some other kind of emotional, psychological things to think about is you could feel a lot of shame and guilt this time of year that maybe you're not doing as much as you should to, meet those holiday norms around food or your behavior. You could just have an increase in anxiety and depression. And you could feel bad about this and your stress level could be high. A lot of my clients have a big fear of relapse around this time of year. And unfortunately, we do see a spike in admissions around the holidays. A lot of times we are full in November and December because it is a very hard time of year for people and it's a hard time of year to cope. And so you may find that your coping mechanisms feel really depleted and that you're feeling really lonely and isolated and that at a lot of these gatherings, you maybe don't feel safe. So a couple other triggers I just want you to think about is kind of the January new me pressure, We see a lot of like diet culture, of course, this time of year. A lot of fitness challenges come out, especially on social media in December as everyone's rolling out their new fitness challenge or diet challenge they're going to do in January. If you're at other people's houses, you could have scale access. I know when I go to my sister-in-law's house, in her guest bathroom, there is a scale just sitting right there. And so no one else has scales in their bathroom, but she does. So I've had a lot of clients say that as well. When they go to relatives' house, there's just a scale right there in the bathroom. Then, of course, relatives making comments about your body, and then alcohol at the gatherings. So for a lot of individuals with eating disorders, we're of course at high risk of alcohol abuse, especially if you struggle with bulimia. Those two can go hand in hand. So, what is your plan for that? Do you have a plan for that? Have you struggled with that? So, that a lot of times you need to be just as focused on that as you do on the eating disorder. So, let's talk about coping and self care. So, I'm going to go through some vignettes, kind of talk about the situation, then go through coping for each one, and then we'll go over some general kind of coping skills. So first one, it's Thanksgiving dinner, and the dining room is full of chatter, laughter, and the smell of food. Maddie's a 23-year-old woman in recovery from anorexia and is sitting at the table with her family. She's been doing well in treatment and is working hard on eating balanced meals again. As everyone starts passing the dishes around, her aunt, without any ill intent, smiles and says, "Wow, Maddie, you look great. It looks like you've put on some weight. So healthy." Instantly, Maddie feels her heart race. The room seems to close in on her. The comment, meant as a compliment, stings. Her eating disorder thoughts flare up. They're all noticing. I've lost control. Everyone's judging me. So if you've ever experienced that, which I know I did very early on in my eating disorder, I just wanted to like crawl into a hole. And I think, again, when that happened to me, the family member did mean it as a compliment. I, of course, did not take it as a compliment. So let's walk through what Maddie could do. So Maddie takes a slow breath and grounds herself using one of her DBT skills. So we'll go through the stop one. So a stop, we don't react immediately. So you take a deep breath. I like to sometimes do when I go public speak. I don't do it as much anymore, but I even do the Superman pose where you kind of put your arms back and you take a deep breath and then observe what she's feeling. Shame, anxiety, tension, and then proceed mindfully what will help, not harm. She decides to respond briefly and neutrally. "Thanks, Aunt Lisa. I'm feeling healthier these days." Then she redirects the conversation. "How's your new job going?" This allows Maddie to maintain her boundary and shift the focus away from her body. Now, sometimes when I give this vignette in group as an example, a lot of the clients instantly want to attack Aunt Lisa. But again, we have to recognize that Aunt Lisa has no ill intent. And even though we're maybe really triggered, we want to try to respond in a neutral way that's not harming. And I used to practice comments as my return comment, even though I didn't necessarily mean them. So as she says, "Thanks, Aunt Lisa, I'm feeling healthier these days." Now, Maddie may not actually feel that way right now. And when we think of positive affirmations, when people would comment on my weight gain, I would usually say, "Thank you, I am feeling so much better." Now, a lot of times that is not how I was feeling. but that's how I would respond. So I know that sometimes feels counterintuitive, and I hate the fake it till you make it. As a psychologist, I never even want to say that. But in these situations, we want to kind of think, this is how I want to respond. This is what I want to say. So let's look at later after the moment coping strategies. So later in the evening, Maddie excuses herself to the bathroom. If you're bulimic, you don't want to excuse yourself to the bathroom. Now maybe go step outside, step into a hallway to do some self-soothing or grounding. She reminds herself, my worth isn't defined by my body. Recovery means my body's healing. Okay, this remind myself. I like my clients to have mantras. What are you going to say to yourself? On average, in 1 hour, we have 600 negative thoughts about ourselves if we're depressed, and only 3 positive thoughts about ourselves in a day. This remind herself of my worth isn't defined by my body. Recovery means my body's healing. She needs to already have this pre-rehearsed is her mantra and something positive she's going to say to herself. She might even need to have it written down on a card in her pocket or on her phone to remind herself. These are not going to come naturally at first. And then she's going to say, comments about my body say more about others than about me. I am more than my appearance. She then can email her therapist or a trusted friend for support and say a family comment about weight came up tonight. I handled it, but I feel shaken. So again, in this example, I am going to practice what my response is going to be if someone comments about my weight. So if someone comments about my weight, I already have a kind of calculated response I am going to say, and then what am I going to say to myself internally to help me get through it? If I wait for in the moment, the eating disorder will win. The negative thoughts will flood me. So this all takes practice, and I'm going to be writing it down and practicing, practicing, practicing. Okay, next vignette. It's Christmas dinner. Sophie, a 25-year-old woman in recovery from bulimia, joins her extended family for the first time since completing a treatment program. She's been working hard on balanced eating, listening to her hunger cues, and following her meal plan without guilt. As she sits down with her plate filled with turkey, mashed potatoes, vegetables, and a small slice of pie, her cousin blurts out, "Wow, Sophie, you're eating all of that? That's a lot more than you used to eat." Sophie freezes, her stomach drops, she feels shame and self-consciousness flood in. The table suddenly feels like a spotlight is shining on her. Her automatic thought is, everyone is watching me. I shouldn't eat this much. So maybe a lot of you have had this experience as well, where you feel like even if they don't comment on your food, you feel like everyone is watching what you're eating. So Sophie pauses and takes a slow breath. And here we're going to use some CBT coping statements. She's going to have already practiced some of these. I deserve to nourish my body. This is part of my recovery. She decides to respond calmly and redirect the situation. I'm following what feels right for me today. Recovery means me enjoying all kinds of food again. Then she shifts the focus away from food. By the way, your cookies look amazing. Did you make them this year? This keeps the tone kind of kind but assertive, setting a boundary without escalating tension. So just shifting away from them focusing on what she's eating to something else, changing the topic. So we're not trying to cause family tension, but we're shifting it off of us. So we're rehearsing what we're going to say to us. We're rehearsing what we're going to say to someone else. But in all of this, before we react, we're going to try to take a calm breath. On some of these other ones, we're going to have some more grounding skills of how we're going to ground ourselves to kind of get through it. So Ethan's a 15-year-old boy in treatment for ARFID. At a holiday dinner, his grandmother keeps placing her casserole in front of him, insisting, "You've been in treatment. You should be able to eat this." Now, other relatives chime in, "Just try one bite. What's wrong with you?" Ethan feels embarrassed, overwhelmed, and frozen. The pressure intensifies his anxiety and shuts down his appetite, making it even harder to eat safely. So, what can Ethan do? So, he already has a prepared script now. I'm following my treatment plan. I'm not ready for new foods right now. So this is his prepared script that he's already practiced with his therapist. He already knows if someone tries to push a new food on him, this is what he's going to say. Now with Ethan, he already has a pre-arranged signal with a family member that if he is getting stressed out, he's going to signal a family member that I'm feeling overwhelmed. So I do this a lot with my younger clients or with my clients that have a lot of anxiety, that they could just give their partner or a parent a signal. Like, I'm going to just kind of be playing with my hair really quick. Like, that means I'm feeling overwhelmed. I need your support. Please jump in and help me. So if you already know, if any of you, for those of you that have been in my body image groups, we do a group on teasers and shamers. And like, for example, grandmas and moms are top on the shamer and teaser list. And grandmas can be really, really hard and maybe not understand. So if you already know going into a situation that grandma could be really hard, you may want to prearrange a signal with your mom that if grandma starts saying things to me, "Mom, I'm going to give you a signal. I'm going to start playing with my bracelets so you know grandma is stressing me out and I need you to come give me some support." So then Ethan's going to take some slow breaths to help him kind of calm down. He'll step away outside or in a hallway for grounding. He could kind of work on feeling his feet on the floor, or he could hold a fidget toy. So I have a lot of patients, and I did this in my recovery. I kept little worry stones in my pocket. They were just very, very small that I could just like pull out of my pocket and just rub. Now, a lot of my clients know I use my bracelets as like grounding tools, and that way it just looks like my jewelry, but it's my bracelets. So whatever works for you are there kind of grounding tools you could use. And then the self-talk, "I'm not failing. My plan is helping me feel or heal, and it's okay to go at my pace." Okay, next one. Maria is a 38-year-old woman in treatment for binge eating disorder. At a holiday gathering, several family members make comments like, "Have you thought about starting Ozempic? Or you should really go on one of those GLP-1 shots. They work for everyone." Others suggest she really needs to lose weight this year, leaving Maria feeling ashamed, judged, and tempted to isolate. She feels a surge of anxiety and an urge to binge later as a way to cope with her emotional discomfort. So what can Maria do? So in the moment, she has a short script. This is what she's going to say to herself. Or like I like to say, a mantra. I'm working with my treatment team on a plan that's right for me. And then boundary setting with her family or the people at the table. I'm not discussing weight or medications today. How is she going to regulate her emotions? Slow breathing, quiet step back or to go outside to regroup. Support person, connect with someone who can redirect the conversation. Grounding skills, she can focus on one physical sensation. Other, for example, grounding skills, chew on mint gum, hold something textured. And then self-compassion statement, these comments are not about my worth. I'm allowed to protect my recovery. Okay, Lily is a 19-year-old in eating disorder recovery. At a holiday dinner, her grandmother keeps encouraging her to eat more and watches everything she puts on her plate. Other relatives comment on what she is or isn't eating. Lily feels overwhelmed, embarrassed, and trapped. Her heart races, she loses her appetite, and she feels the urge to shut down or leave the room. So again, we're going to do some deep breathing. Her prepared script, she's going to say to herself, is I'm working on my meal plan with my care team. Thank you for caring. Support person. If you don't have someone there, is there someone you can even text to reach out to? Take a brief break, go to the bathroom, go into another room. Other grounding skills. And we'll go to these more when we talk about the DBT skills, but cold water, running your hands under cold water, holding an ice cube wrapped in a napkin, other things to just kind of ground yourself. And then self-talk, I'm allowed to follow my plan. I'm doing what's best for my recovery. Okay, next one. During a family dinner, Sarah, who's in eating disorder recovery, sits next to her cousin Amy. As the family eats, Amy starts talking about how she's been taking a GLP-1 medication and has lost a lot of weight. Amy proudly talks about how little she eats now and how it's finally easy to control cravings. Other family members join in asking questions and complimenting Amy on how amazing she looks. Sarah starts feeling her stomach twist. She feels both jealous and ashamed. Old thoughts come flooding back, like maybe I should go back to dieting, or I'm out of control. She suddenly feels anxious about what's on her plate and wishes she hadn't eaten dessert. So I just know in my life, this has been a challenge for me just because I feel like all my friends now are on GLP-1s and they all just talk about it nonstop. And so what is Sarah going to do? So she's going to ground herself and take some slow breaths. You can notice where you are, feel your feet on the ground, or just even feel the chair supporting yourself. Remind yourself, their body and their choices are not mine. My body deserves nourishment. Shift the topic. Politely redirect the conversation. I'm glad that's working for you, Amy. How's work been lately? What can she do later? Journal or talk with a support person afterward about what feelings came up and how to protect her recovery next time. I know when I first was in recovery, I felt like I had to go to war with everyone on every topic, and I had to fight the diet talk, and I had to educate everyone on intuitive eating. And now I just find it sometimes easier, unless they ask for my opinion, to just kind of shift the topic. You guys will have to decide what's easier for you. I just sometimes find it's just not worth the energy to get into it. Okay, last one. Lena spends the afternoon at a friend's holiday open house where food is everywhere. Cookies, dip, appetizers, desserts. Throughout the evening, she picks at things without paying much attention. One bite here, another there. When she gets home, she realizes she's eaten more than she planned. The guilt hits immediately. She feels stuffed and ashamed and was thinking, I've ruined everything, and considers skipping meals the next day. So what do? We pause and name the feeling. She's feeling guilt, shame, and these are not signs of failure, and they're signals to use compassion. So if we think of the DBT skills of radical acceptance, we're going to accept what happened without judgment. It's just one day at a time. One meal does not define recovery. If we use the CBT skill, reframe the thought, we're going to replace I messed up with I nourish myself and I can make more balanced choices tomorrow. Self-soothing, try a gentle walk, listen to calming music, do some deep breathing to reconnect your body. And then reach out and share with your therapist, get group support. Get support if you're feeling like, I messed up. Tell someone how you're feeling. Just don't internalize it and say, see, I can't do this. So really quickly, just kind of summarizing the CBT skills. We're going to catch the thought, always notice what you're thinking, especially if you're going into the all or nothing terms. We're going to challenge it. Ask, what is the evidence of this thought? Is it true? Is there another way to see it? Replace it. Create a more balanced statement. One meal does not define my progress. Reality check. Focus on the facts. Feelings are valid, but they are not facts. And then gratitude shift. Write or say one small thing you appreciate about the moment and recenter your mindset. So kind of summarize the DBT skills really quick. The stop skill, of course, take a step back, observe, proceed mindfully. So with the tip skill, just some really quick things with temperature. Cool down, so you could splash water on your face, place a cold washcloth either on your forehead or behind your neck. Hold an ice cube. I like my clients to do it with a napkin. I don't really like you to do it on your skin, but just to have a napkin or a paper towel. Intense exercise for my over-exercisers. I don't even like to say this one, but this is for you guys 30 to 60 seconds. Just fast movement, just really, really quick can help. And then the paced breathing, 4 to 6, where you inhale for 4 seconds, you exhale for 6 seconds. So one breath, 6 to 8 seconds. I like to do the hand on the chest and the belly for my breathing. That's the one I like to do personally. There's also the one where you can do with your nose, and you can do the 4 to 6. That's the one we used to do in the VA with all the veterans, where you block one nostril and you do the breathing with your nostrils blocked. If I had more time, I would just do it with you guys, but I'm of course running out of time. And then self-soothing, use your 5 senses. This is where I like you to make a self-soothing kit where you have your favorite music. You have soft textures, you have calming scents. Think about your favorite things, and then radical acceptance. I may not like this moment, but I can accept what's happening. So again, we're going to start thinking about what skills we're going to use before an event. We're going to anticipate the triggers we could be facing. We're going to give ourselves scripts of what we're going to say to ourselves, but then we're also going to plan what we're going to say to other people if these things come up. So with all of these vignettes and with all of these examples, we're planning ahead. We're planning ahead. We're preparing. We're not going into the holidays feeling like, well, I don't have a plan for this. Okay, I'm going to skip this one. I think we already have most of these. So if an event goes sideways, it's okay. Have compassion for yourself. It's all right. So even if you practiced all the scripts, all your coping skills, and you just don't do it, that's all right. The next meal, I used to always say, well, I'll start over on Monday. Nope, start over on the next meal. Get back on track the next meal. Debrief with your therapist. Debrief with your dietitian. Update your plan. And then do your self-correction. Those of you that know me know I'm all about self-correction. As long as you self-correct, you're moving forward. So whether you restricted, you purged, you binged, you overexercised, you self-harmed, whatever the behavior was, what is your self-correction for that behavior? As long as you do a self-correction, I really don't think there's anything you're doing wrong, because self-correction is always moving forward. So how loved ones can support us during the holidays? Be present. You don't need to be perfect. Your calm presence matters more than saying the right thing. Ask open questions. How can I make this easier for you today? Would it help if we plan meals together? Focus on connection, not food. Suggest activities like games, walks, or watching movies together. Model calm eating. Avoid labeling foods good or bad. So if you're a parent or a loved one and you're dieting and doing your own stuff, please don't talk about it. It's very triggering for your loved one. Respect boundaries. If your loved one declines food or event, accept it without judgment. Maybe they're having a hard time. Validate feelings. I can see this is really hard for you, and I'm here for you. Supporting a loved one, here's the kind of do's. Offer empathy and listen more than you talk. Encourage professional help and ongoing support. Keep meal times as low stress as possible. Talk about neutral topics. Compliment non-appearance qualities like kindness, humor, or strength. And celebrate small victories. You showed up today. That's what matters. You came to PHP today, you came to IOP, you came to your session. Sometimes for my clients, I mean, it's just showing up. You came to therapy today. That's progress. Don'ts, don't comment on weight, body size, or what someone eats. Don't try to force food or try to fix the problems yourself. Don't talk about diets. We talked about that. Calories or your own body. Don't minimize their experience. Like just eat. It's not that hard. Don't use guilt like you're ruining the holidays for everyone, right? So we don't want to guilt trip them this time of the year. And when do you need to make sure they need more help? If you're seeing rapid weight changes, their vitals are concerns, medical instability, fainting, a real escalation and restriction, binge purge, compulsive exercise, of course, suicidal thoughts, self-harm urges, social isolation, increased anxiety, frequent comments about feeling guilty. If you notice significant changes in your loved one's behavior, make sure they're getting more support during the holiday season and more professional support. Up their therapy sessions, make sure they're getting help. So let's kind of look at number one of kind of recovery holiday toolkit. So like I've been saying, first we're going to plan ahead. We're going to identify our triggers, what triggers us. We're going to have a plan going into it. Discuss it with your therapist, your dietitian, or your support person. As much structure as you can have as possible during the holiday season is going to be helpful. If you are really struggling with food and you're not that far in your recovery, it's okay to bring some familiar foods to events. Like if you already know this is going to be hard for me, it's okay to bring more of your routine foods or your familiar foods if you anticipate the event could be really hard for you. If you have workplace or school things that are going on, how are you going to navigate parties or potlucks? Maybe have a buddy plan. Communicate your needs with your work supervisor or with teachers. Request accommodations if you need them. It's okay to ask for help. If you already know, again, you're going to be doing some traveling, plan ahead. Do you have to like set alarms to make sure you're having meals? Trying to maintain your schedule as much as you can. Protect your sleep. Do you need to have earplugs, eye masks? What do you need to do to make sure you're getting enough sleep, especially if you're staying at someone's house? Can you have virtual sessions while you're traveling, especially if you're going out of state? Number two, communicate your boundaries with your family, with your support people, with your extended family. Practice the gentle phrases ahead of time. I'd rather not talk about food or my body today. Let's focus on something other than what's on our plates. I appreciate your care, but I'm working on trusting my body again. You are going to be practicing these of what you're going to be saying to your family members. So talking in advance to trusted family members, how are they going to help you in these situations? Maybe you have, again, a signal to them. Maybe you have a clear boundary of we're only going to this event for 20 minutes. Of try to avoid all food and body talk when you're at these events and have a way that you're going to change the subject. So make sure you kind of know who your safe people are, or that you can text someone. You're going to limit your time and really try to avoid alcohol or have boundaries already pre-set up with alcohol at these events. So number 3, manage mealtime stress. Already have a plan for grounding tools. If you are going into a meal and you already know you're going to be stressed, how are you going to ground yourself at that meal? A lot of my clients already know I'm keeping things in my pockets to distract myself. What am I going to do? How are you going to shift the focus of the conversation? Can you briefly excuse yourself? Now, for me, being a CEO, it's really easy. I act like I have to deal with the work thing, and I just take my phone and say, "Oh, just excuse me for a minute." And I just walk away with my phone. Do you have a job? Maybe you can do that too, that you can just say, I got to go deal with this for a minute. Find a way, if you need a break, to excuse yourself from a situation. So, and then again, have your meal plan structure. If you're working with a dietitian ahead of time, you know what you're going to do during the holidays. Number 4, refrain from negative thoughts. How are you going to counter your negative thoughts? Remember, I said we have 600 negative thoughts an hour. I like my clients to literally write down their positive affirmations and to practice those. I like you to do 365. You write them all down, you put them in a box, and that becomes your positive affirmation for a day of how you are going to reframe your negative thoughts. As we approach January and all the negative thoughts that come with the January diet culture, have a plan for social media. Can you detox yourself from social media? Can you unfollow or kind of unmute some of these or mute some of these sites and kind of protect yourself and kind of make sure yourself you're not doing any of these kind of resolutions based on changing your body. Number 5, stay connected to your support. If you can stay in contact with your treatment team, if you can email them during the holidays, I know a lot of therapists do take time off during the holidays. Can you email them? The National Alliance has online support groups. If you're not aware of the National Alliance, please check them out. They have, I don't even know how many, I think it's like 63 weekly groups you can join. They are free. That's a great resource. And then kind of have your resources ready to support you during the holidays. Have kind of a calendar that you know what you need to do during the holidays. Make sure you're getting your medications refilled. And then if you're struggling and if you feel like your symptoms are getting worse, catch yourself before you fall too much. And that's why I like to say, have a relapse plan. I don't like my clients to fall too far. I like to catch you sooner than later. So if you know you need more support, please get more support sooner. And then the final one is prioritize your self-care. Schedule quiet downtime. Make sure you work self-care into your routine, whether it's walks, journaling, listening to music, setting boundaries around social media, enjoying connection over consumption, practicing those daily affirmations. So those are all kind of things that I would really encourage you guys to try to do as you approach the holidays. Now, I realize I only have 1 minute left, Tamara, and I probably did not leave any questions or time for questions because as I do, I completely over prepared and have too much material because
That's okay.
I have a tendency to do that. But they can email me questions.
They can. I'll remind everybody about that email. So it's cfcwebinar@gmail.com. You can send me an email there. And a couple of you have already messaged me saying I sent you an email. So that's great. I'll pass those on to Dr. Hawkins. I also need to give you just a quick note that we are building a new building next to us to add 36 beds, and they are demolishing a wall right next to my office right this second. So I think Zoom does a pretty good job of eliminating that extra noise. But if I'm shouting at you, that's why, because I can't hear
Can't even
what
hear it,
I'm
Tamara.
saying.
You're quiet.
Okay, good.
So
Okay,
yeah,
good. Okay, we'll do just a couple of questions and then we know folks
yeah.
have to go.
Okay.
So, okay. This one is from an anonymous attendee, and I thought it was an awesome question. Is it okay to make an appearance comment like, you look so full of life, or your face is so vibrant and full of color, or you look radiant, your face and eyes are radiating life, etc.?
Now, like to me, I would love that comment, but I know too many of my clients know that will trigger them. So even if we say like you have more life in your face or you're brighter, to them that means I've gained weight and you've noticed. So even a comment like that can still sometimes trigger them. So we have to always be really careful because I would think that would be a benign comment, but as someone that's been running groups for 27 years, for some of my clients, it would still trigger them.
Right. Or sometimes
Yep,
we're extra tender for sure.
yep, yep.
Okay, last question. This is from Christopher. Christopher said, when we challenge our patients and clients, how would we handle pushback or those that may feel judged by our challenges?
I think it's always going at their pace. So I find if we give them too big of a challenge at first and they can't do it, they don't want to come back to therapy. And so finding a challenge that they can be successful at. So it may have to be baby steps. And I may want you to take a leap, and that may be too much. So I need to go at my client's pace. And so that's what my encouragement would be, Christopher, is we maybe need to do a little more baby steps. And or we need to get more players involved to help support them more to give them that encouragement, right? We need more hands involved to help because maybe it's just too hard for them.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for answering the questions. Thank you for all that you provided today. I was enthralled and I work with you every day and it was amazing. It was really an awesome presentation and really helpful. I have loved ones who struggle, so it's really was super helpful for me personally, and I know everybody online got a lot out of it. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And my thanks to everybody who attended. And know that we're keeping a good thought for all of you as you go through the holiday season. And we're so grateful that you would take an hour out of your day to spend time with us today. So thanks again. Everybody be well and take good care.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, you guys.